All right, so today we're going to be learning about lists. So if you watched my lesson on Google Docs, you might remember me talking about bulleted lists and numbered lists. And what you might remember was me telling you how to make a bulleted list or numbered list, but you wouldn't remember me telling you about how and when to use those lists. On top of the numbered list and the bulleted list, there's also a third kind of list, the checklist. And this is special out of the three. It's a special one out of the three because you can click this box to check it. And if you see, if I type anything here, once it's unchecked, you can read it normally. But once it is checked, you can see a line going through the word, which shows you that that is completed. Before we go into the checklists, let's review lists in general. So to make a list, you look at this top bar and you can see these three lists. You want a numbered list, click on the numbered list. You want a bulleted list, click on the one with dots. And you want a checklist, click on the one with check marks. Now, bulleted lists, checklists, and numbered lists all have one thing in common, and that is they have subsections. Now, what is a subsection? Now you see, if I type here and do enter, 1 goes down to 2. Those are what are on the side for the numbered list. But if I press the tab button, which is on the left side of your keyboard, then you'll notice that the 2 becomes an A. And if I start typing here and enter again, it goes down to B. So to make a list, what you have to do is look at the top for the type of list you want to make. Let's do bulleted for now. So you make a list. Then you want to click the one with the check mark. A dot or numbers. Sorry, a check mark with check marks, dots, or numbers, depending on which list you want to use. Next, you type one step, then type the next step. Sorry, you type one step, you press enter, and you type the next step. And once you've typed the next step, you can press enter again. But if there's anything you need to say about the next step, then you can say, if one step needs to be explained more, then press tab. And now you can see this makes another dot here. You just press enter again, and it will go back to its original state. So now you know how to make a normal list. But what you don't know yet is when you should use each different kind of list. So first is bulleted lists. Bulleted lists are the most basic type of lists. All they have is dots that never change. They should be used when order is not important. So they should be used when you don't need to look at when you should be doing each thing. So a bulleted list would not be used, for example, if you're writing instructions for how to cook something. For example, if you're writing how to wash rice, then you might write put rice into pot, fill pot with water, swirl around rice. Now, as you can see, the grammar that you use in lists is different from the grammar that you use outside of lists. But for the purposes of this lesson, I'm going to use normal grammar. So fill the pot with water, put rice into the pot, and swirl around the rice. Now, this would be fine if it was a numbered list. You can see this is step 1, 2, and 3. But with a bulleted list, you can't tell which step is which. However, when you should use bulleted lists is when order is not important. For example, if you want to say different ingredients for fried rice, then you might want to use a bulleted list. For example, rice, eggs, vegetables, and meat. And if I was using a numbered list, this wouldn't make sense, because then you might think that you need to get the rice first, then the eggs, then the vegetables, then the meat. But when you use a bulleted list, there's no confusion. You know that these are what you need in no order. So next, we want to look at numbered lists. And numbered lists, we've kind of already talked about them. You use them when there's an order to something. For example, if you're cooking rice, then you would take a pot of washed rice, put inside rice cooker. Take a pot of washed rice, put the rice inside of the rice cooker, and turn on the rice cooker. These would be 3 steps. But if it was a bulleted list, then it wouldn't make sense because you don't know what order to complete these. So now we've gone over numbered lists and bulleted lists, but what we haven't gone over is checklists. So a checklist is like the other 2 lists. You type something in here, you press enter, and another one appears. You can press tab to move it to the side, and you can press enter again to move it back. But as we talked about at the beginning of the class, if you press this square, then it will cross out the word that is shown inside of that line. Press this square, hello gets crossed. If I uncheck it, press it again, then hello is normal. Now, when do you use a checklist? A checklist should be used when you want to keep track of what you've completed in the list. For example, you could use it as a to-do list or a shopping list. To show what I mean, say, let's go back to the rice example. Now, a bulleted list would be good when you want to keep track of what ingredients you need. Again, rice, eggs, vegetables, meat. But if you're actually going to the store and getting these things, you want to keep track of which ones you have already gotten. And the best way to do that is with a checklist. So if I highlight this, again, hold down my left mouse button and drag it up and press this button, then it will turn into a checklist. You might wonder how this helps. And the way that it helps is, say, if I'm in the store and I see eggs near the entrance, then I can go get the eggs and check it off. This way I know that I've already gotten the eggs and I don't need to get more. Again, if I see meat, then I can cross that off. And the great thing about checklists is that you can check them in any order. Anyways, that is when you should use a checklist. Another way you could use it is as a to-do list. For example, if today you want to cook dinner, harvest the vegetables, or read a few chapters from a book, then you can write them in using a checklist and then check them off as you complete them. Another thing you can use from a checklist is, again, pressing tab. For example, harvest the vegetables. If you want more inside of that, then you can go here, press tab, and write any more explanations that you need. For example, harvest the vegetables can be separated into harvest the cucumbers, tomatoes, or beans. And then again, you can check them off as you complete them. Okay, so today we're going to be trying something new. Using what you learned today, I'm going to assign you a homework assignment. Yay! But yeah, so a great way to learn is to practice. And while it's great to do it in a class with the teacher telling you what to do, it's also good to do it on your own because your teacher can't always be there. So this is your homework. You should use one list. I'm not going to tell you which list to use because that's part of the assignment. And you have to use the list to organize what you know. Try to tell me one thing about every type of list. One thing that you learned about every type of list. Then try to separate each list into its own section for organization and bonus points. You don't have to do the second part, but you should try to do it if you can. Your next task is to make an instruction manual for how to make your favorite dish of food. Again, you decide what list to use. You don't have to make an instruction manual for your favorite dish. That's just an example that I chose. You could also do something like a game and how to play it, or you could say how to install a lock on a door. Those are just some ideas, but again, just try to make an instruction manual for any sort of task that you want to teach people about how to do. Finally, use a list. Again, you decide what kind to make a shopping list for your groceries next week. All homework is again optional. I can't force you or watch over your shoulder. I can't force you to complete your homework, but it will help you better understand lists if you do complete it. There's no due date. I, again, can't really monitor you guys, but try to do it as soon as possible. But if you have other things, I completely understand. Take as much time as you need to finish it. That being said, that's the end of the lesson, and I hope that you learned something and enjoyed.